Live television has a way of revealing what rehearsed interviews never do. There is no pause button, no second take, and no quiet editing room waiting to smooth out the edges. When something shifts in tone on a live set, millions of viewers feel it at the exact same time. That is exactly what happened when MichaelBJordan sat across from Sunny Hostin on The View. A conversation that began like any other promotional appearance, but slowly turned into something far more revealing. Subscribe to The Truth Narrator, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. MichaelBJordan is known for his composure. Years in the spotlight have taught him how to navigate interviews with charm, humility, and measured confidence. Whether promoting blockbuster films, speaking about his work ethic, or discussing representation in Hollywood, he carries himself with a calm professionalism that rarely falters. Audiences have come to expect that steadiness from him. Hosts, too, often rely on that predictability to guide their questions safely through familiar territory. Sunny Hostin, on the other hand, is known for a very different reason. As a longtime co-host of The View, she has built a reputation for asking questions that do not always follow the comfortable script. Her background in law and journalism informs a style that is direct, sometimes probing, and often rooted in broader social conversations. She is not known for letting celebrity guests remain entirely within the polished boundaries of promotional talking points. When those two styles met on a live broadcast, something subtle but unmistakable unfolded. The setting looked routine. The bright studio lights, the semicircle table, the casual laughter between co-hosts. Everything appeared exactly as viewers have seen countless times before. MichaelBJordan was there to discuss his latest project, his career, and the journey that had brought him to this point in Hollywood. The tone at the beginning was friendly. There were smiles, nods, and the usual rhythm of light conversation that helps audiences ease into an interview. But live television does not hide shifts in energy. As the discussion moved beyond surface-level topics, Sunny Hostin began steering the conversation toward more personal reflections and public perceptions that have followed Jordan throughout his career. Not gossip, not rumor, but questions rooted in how he is viewed by audiences and the media. Questions that ask a celebrity to step outside the comfort of rehearsed answers and into something more thoughtful and, at times, more vulnerable. MichaelBJordan listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He did not laugh it off. Instead, his posture changed ever so slightly. His expression became more focused. The exchange slowed. The rhythm that had felt light just minutes earlier now felt measured, deliberate. Viewers at home may not have known exactly why the tone shifted, but they could feel that it had. What makes moments like this so compelling is not raised voices or dramatic arguments. It is the quiet tension that builds when two people, both confident and articulate, begin navigating a conversation that neither of them can fully control. There is no script guiding them anymore, only live thought, live reaction, and live interpretation. For Sunny Hostin, this is familiar territory. She is used to navigating complex conversations in real time. For MichaelBJordan, the challenge was different. He was no longer simply promoting a film or sharing a rehearsed story from his career. He was responding to a line of questioning that invited him to reflect on how he is perceived beyond the screen, beyond the characters he plays, and beyond the polished image audiences often see. And he did not shy away from it. Instead, he leaned into the conversation. He challenged certain assumptions with calm clarity. He reframed questions in a way that shifted the perspective back to his work, his intentions, and the realities of navigating fame in the modern era. There was no defensiveness, but there was unmistakable firmness. The kind of firmness that signals a person is fully aware of the narrative surrounding them and ready to address it directly. This is where the atmosphere in the studio began to change. The co-hosts listened more closely. The usual crosstalk at the table softened. The audience, once laughing and applauding, grew noticeably quieter. The focus narrowed to the exchange between Hostin and Jordan, as if the rest of the set had faded into the background. Live television can capture that kind of silence in a way recorded interviews rarely do. It lingers. It stretches. It invites viewers to read between the lines. What made this moment matter was not controversy. It was authenticity. It was the sight of a celebrity navigating questions that touched on identity, public image, and responsibility in a way that felt unscripted and immediate. It was the sight of a host doing what she is known for, asking questions that go deeper than comfort allows. And it was the realization that neither of them backed away from the exchange. Jordan's responses were thoughtful, but carried a subtle edge of conviction. Sunny Hostin's follow-ups were respectful but persistent. There was a mutual understanding that this was no longer a routine interview segment. This was a real conversation unfolding in real time, with millions watching. Moments like this are rare on daytime television, not because they are dramatic, but because they are honest. They reveal how public figures handle being seen not just as entertainers, but as individuals with perspectives shaped by experience, expectation, and scrutiny. As the segment continued, viewers began to sense that they were witnessing something different from the usual promotional appearance. The energy in the room was no longer light and conversational. It had become reflective, serious, and undeniably compelling. And all of it was happening live. There were no commercial breaks to reset the tone. No chance to rephrase a question. No opportunity to edit out a pause or a reaction. What audiences saw was exactly what occurred in that studio, second by second. By the time the conversation reached its turning point, it was clear that this interview would be remembered not for what Jordan came to promote, but for how he handled being challenged in a way few celebrity guests anticipate. The question was no longer about a movie, a role, or a career milestone. It had become about perception, responsibility, and the quiet power of answering difficult questions without losing composure. And just as viewers began to grasp the weight of what was unfolding, the exchange took a direction no one in the studio, or at home, expected. In the days leading up to the interview, anticipation had quietly built around Jordan's appearance on The View. He was promoting a high-profile project, a film that had already attracted attention for its ambitious storytelling and socially resonant themes. Industry insiders noted that Jordan had been deeply involved in shaping the project, not just as an actor, but as a producer, lending his voice to creative decisions and representation. His commitment to authenticity in both performance and production had earned him praise from critics and colleagues alike. Yet public perception is never one-dimensional. Jordan had cultivated an image of professionalism, charisma, and approachability. On red carpets and in interviews, he exuded confidence without arrogance, often speaking about his career with humility and insight. But there were undercurrents in the media narrative. Some questioned whether his calm, composed persona masked a reticence to address deeper issues, particularly around Hollywood's approach to race, gender, and representation. Social media buzzed with conversations dissecting every statement he made, every interview clip shared. Sunny Hostin, for her part, was acutely aware of this context. Known for her incisive journalism and willingness to confront difficult topics, she had, over her years on The View, cultivated a reputation for steering conversations toward areas that others might avoid. She did not rely on scripted fluff or generic questions. Instead, she aimed to challenge, to illuminate, and sometimes to unsettle, though always with professional rigor. Her audience had come to expect thoughtful, probing interviews that went beyond surface-level promotion. The combination of Jordan's polished composure and Hostin's incisive questioning created an undercurrent of tension even before the cameras rolled. The production team, while experienced in managing high-profile interviews, recognized the potential for sparks when two personalities with different interview philosophies met. There was no overt conflict in the lead-up, no public statements or social media disputes, but the possibility of an exchange that could test boundaries was palpable. In rehearsals and pre-interview briefings, Jordan's team focused on typical promotional talking points: the film, his personal growth, and career milestones. There was careful preparation, as is standard for an actor of his profile, but no anticipation that the conversation might pivot sharply. Hostin, meanwhile, prepared a framework that would allow her to probe thoughtfully, asking questions about public perception, societal influence, and personal accountability. Both sides understood the stakes, though each may have envisioned the encounter unfolding differently. As the cameras went live, the stage was set for a moment of heightened awareness. Jordan walked in with the ease of a seasoned professional, acknowledging co-hosts with smiles and polite nods, settling into his seat. Hostin, seated across from him, offered a warm but attentive greeting. At first glance, the interview looked typical: an actor promoting his work, a host engaging in light conversation, the co-hosts ready to add their usual commentary. But beneath the surface, subtle cues hinted at the tension to come. Jordan's posture, while relaxed, was intentional. He listened closely, eyes focused, hands clasped thoughtfully. Hostin's questions, measured and precise, hinted at the deeper lines of inquiry she intended to pursue. Every glance, pause, and shift in tone carried unspoken weight. The stage was, quite literally, a battleground of conversation. Composure versus probing, charisma versus scrutiny, preparation versus immediacy. In those initial moments, the conversation flowed comfortably. Jordan spoke about the film's challenges, the collaborative effort behind it, and the significance of the story he was helping to tell. The co-hosts offered occasional interjections, laughter punctuating moments that would have seemed normal to casual viewers. Yet, for anyone paying close attention, the rhythm hinted that the interview was heading toward a pivotal moment. Hostin began steering the discussion gently toward topics that touched on Jordan's public image. Questions were framed around the responsibility of celebrities, the pressure of representation, and the ways in which media narratives can shape public understanding. These questions were not confrontational in tone, but they required careful navigation. They demanded that Jordan move beyond rehearsed lines and address perspectives he may not have encountered in prior interviews. As the conversation deepened, the anticipation in the studio became tangible. Producers, camera operators, and staff, all trained to maintain a calm professional demeanor, were aware that something noteworthy was unfolding. Jordan's responses remained measured, but there was a noticeable shift. Pauses lengthened slightly, inflections in his voice carried more weight, and the natural rhythm of conversation slowed. The audience, though unaware of the behind-the-scenes dynamics, could sense a subtle change in energy. This build-up is essential to understand the power of the live moment that would soon follow. The tension was not manufactured for shock value. It was the result of a natural collision between two forces: a celebrity committed to authenticity and a host committed to journalistic rigor. Both parties were operating at the height of their abilities, and the outcome was uncertain. In this context, the stakes of the interview were clear. For Jordan, it was a test of how he would navigate challenging questions about perception and responsibility without compromising his composure or message. For Hostin, it was an opportunity to conduct a conversation that was both respectful and revealing, showcasing the depth of inquiry that daytime audiences often crave. As the first half of the segment concluded, subtle foreshadowing indicated that the exchange was about to reach a critical point. Jordan's expressions grew more contemplative, his answers more pointed. Hostin's questions became slightly sharper, more focused, and more probing. The dynamic had shifted from casual promotion to a moment of authentic dialogue that neither scripted prep nor prior expectation could fully anticipate. The stage was now perfectly set for a live interaction that would hold viewers' attention, spark conversation, and ultimately become a defining moment in both their professional narratives. The audience could sense that something important was about to unfold, though the full impact remained just out of reach. And then, in the middle of the conversation, the live moment arrived. Unexpected, raw, and entirely unscripted. The question that changed everything was about to be asked. The cameras cut back to the studio after a brief break, and the focus tightened. Michael B. Jordan sat upright, a subtle shift in posture signaling his attentiveness. Sunny Hostin leaned slightly forward, her gaze steady, eyes locking with his in a way that immediately conveyed she was moving beyond the surface-level promotion. The audience, though watching casually, could sense that the energy in the room had changed. There was a quiet gravity, an unspoken tension that hung between the co-hosts and their guest. Hostin began with a question that seemed simple at first, almost conversational. But there was a precision in the way she framed it, a directness that required Jordan to step outside the comfort zone of typical celebrity interviews. She asked about the ways public perception had influenced his career choices, about moments in the media where he felt misrepresented, and how he balanced the image people see with the person he actually is. Her voice was calm, steady, professional, but every word carried weight. For a brief moment, Jordan's face revealed a flicker of something the audience rarely sees: calculation. He paused, not because he was caught off guard, but because the question demanded more than a rehearsed response. His eyes narrowed slightly, scanning Hostin for intent, gauging whether the inquiry was probing or accusatory. The pause stretched longer than usual, and even the co-hosts around the table seemed to feel it, their interjections momentarily halted. When he spoke, it was measured, deliberate. Jordan articulated his perspective on representation, on the choices he made in selecting roles, and on the responsibility that comes with visibility in Hollywood. His voice was calm, yet there was an unmistakable firmness. He was not arguing. He was clarifying, asserting his viewpoint with precision. Hostin's follow-up questions cut deeper. She pressed on how he responds to criticism, how he manages the expectations of fans versus the realities of the industry, and how he handles moments when public perception conflicts with personal truth. Each question required a balance. Jordan had to remain composed yet honest, diplomatic yet assertive. He did not stumble, but the tension in his posture and the intensity in his gaze communicated the stakes to everyone watching. The studio fell into an unusual quiet. Laughter, clapping, and the usual ambient chatter softened as the exchange deepened. Jordan's body language, subtle as it was, conveyed readiness and seriousness. He leaned in slightly, gestured with hands only when necessary, and maintained eye contact in a way that reflected both confidence and sincerity. Hostin, for her part, maintained her professional composure, nodding occasionally, letting him finish each point fully before introducing the next layer of inquiry. At one point, the conversation paused, not because someone interrupted, but because the weight of what had been said hung in the air. Jordan had just addressed a sensitive topic, one that touched on both personal and societal dimensions. The silence was long enough for viewers at home to sense that this was not a scripted moment. There were no edits, no cuts, no pre-recorded safety net. Everything was unfolding live in real time, and the impact was undeniable. As the dialogue progressed, Jordan began to push back gently against certain assumptions embedded in the questions. Not defensively, but with precision. He reframed the narrative, reminding the audience and Hostin that his work and his choices were guided by both personal values and a broader sense of responsibility. The phrasing, tone, and calm insistence in his voice created a compelling dynamic. A celebrity engaging thoughtfully with critique, unafraid to clarify misconceptions, yet respectful of the journalistic inquiry. Hostin responded in kind, maintaining a balance of firmness and professionalism. Her questions evolved from general inquiry to specific reflection, challenging Jordan to provide concrete examples of moments where he felt misrepresented or misunderstood. She did not press aggressively, but she did not relent. The tension remained, sustained by the mutual respect between the host and the guest. At a certain point, the conversation reached its peak. Jordan leaned forward slightly, his tone intensifying ever so subtly, emphasizing a point about agency and perception. Hostin listened, allowing the pause after his statement to resonate. The audience, both in studio and at home, experienced that pause too, an almost cinematic moment of reflection that felt both intimate and public. Every nuance of expression mattered. The slight tightening of a jaw, the calm but unwavering eye contact, the quiet breath before speaking again. This was the moment that defined the segment. It was not loud or sensationalized. There were no raised voices or dramatic outbursts. What made it compelling was its authenticity, the clarity of thought meeting direct inquiry, the subtle push and pull of two professionals navigating an unscripted space. The camera lingered, capturing every micro-expression, every slight movement, every moment of tension that underscored the seriousness of the discussion. Finally, as the segment approached its natural transition point, Jordan offered a closing reflection. His words were concise, precise, and deliberate. They summarized not just his response to Hostin's probing questions, but also the larger theme of accountability, perception, and navigating fame responsibly. He remained composed, dignified, and unflinching, a testament to the preparation, poise, and authenticity that had characterized his entire career. Hostin acknowledged his response with a nod, signaling respect for his articulation while subtly reinforcing the seriousness of the conversation. The co-hosts resumed their usual commentary, but the energy in the room had shifted. Something significant had just occurred. A rare moment on live television where an unscripted, real exchange left a palpable mark on both the audience and the participants. Subscribe to The Truth Narrator to witness more moments like this, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. You will not want to miss the aftermath of this conversation, where the impact of every word, every pause, and every glance becomes clear in ways that extend far beyond the studio lights. The moment lingered long after the question had been asked and answered. In the studio, the energy had shifted. The usual rhythm of chatter, laughter, and interjections that marked daytime television was noticeably subdued. The co-hosts, while continuing to contribute, had adjusted their tone, speaking with a level of attentiveness that reflected the gravity of the exchange. It was clear that what had just unfolded was not typical banter. It was an interaction that demanded reflection from everyone present. Jordan remained composed, but the subtle cues in his posture spoke volumes. His hands, previously resting lightly on the table, were now clasped more firmly. His shoulders were squared, his back straight, and his gaze held steady on Hostin as the conversation moved forward. The intensity of the live exchange had not left him shaken, but it had shifted the way he carried himself. Less performative, more deliberate, more intentional. Every small movement now conveyed a sense of control and purpose, as though he were asserting the weight of his perspective without needing to raise his voice. Sunny Hostin, meanwhile, managed the situation with the practiced calm of an experienced journalist. She did not attempt to overshadow or redirect the conversation artificially. Instead, she allowed the pause to speak for itself, letting the weight of the previous discussion resonate in the room. Her tone softened slightly when addressing follow-up points, a subtle acknowledgement of the intensity that had just occurred, yet her questions remained precise and probing. The balance she struck, between professionalism and emotional intelligence, was a hallmark of her approach, and it ensured that the moment retained its seriousness without tipping into sensationalism. Audience members in the studio, both live and on camera, responded in ways that highlighted the uniqueness of the interaction. There were fewer audible reactions, applause was reserved, laughter almost absent. Instead, there was an attentiveness, a palpable focus, as if the viewers themselves were invited into the gravity of the exchange. Those watching at home likely sensed it as well. The framing of the camera, the pauses in dialogue, and the careful pacing of the host and guest all contributed to a tension that felt immediate and unavoidable. The co-hosts who were observing on either side of Hostin mirrored this energy. Their usual conversational interjections were replaced by quiet nods, brief affirmations, or reflective expressions. It was a moment where everyone involved became secondary to the central exchange, emphasizing the rare nature of witnessing such authenticity on live television. The usual safety net of scripted interjections and light humor had been set aside in favor of a direct, unfiltered dialogue. Jordan's shift was not just in posture. It extended to the tone and cadence of his speech in the remaining portion of the interview. His responses became more reflective, measured, and deliberate. He used pauses strategically, allowing each statement to resonate. Words were carefully chosen, not for entertainment or spectacle, but to clarify, to assert, and to communicate the depth of his perspective. In a medium often dominated by rapid-fire sound bites, this measured pacing made the exchange feel unusually significant. Meanwhile, Hostin managed the dynamics masterfully. She neither rushed him nor allowed the conversation to veer into evasive territory. Each question followed naturally from the last, building a through line that connected his public image, his personal experiences, and the broader societal implications. Her professionalism ensured that the discussion maintained a level of seriousness rare for daytime television, while also allowing the authenticity of Jordan's reactions to shine through. The immediate aftermath was subtle but significant. Jordan had navigated a challenging line of inquiry without compromising his composure or message. He had provided clarity on nuanced topics and demonstrated a command of both the personal and professional dimensions of the conversation. The studio, once filled with casual energy, now held a sense of quiet respect. The dynamic between host and guest had shifted from routine promotion to meaningful dialogue, leaving a lingering impact that extended beyond the live segment itself. Audience response, in real time, reflected this subtle shift. Viewers on social media quickly began discussing the exchange, noting Jordan's measured responses and Hostin's skillful questioning. Clips from the segment circulated rapidly, with commentators highlighting the unusual gravity and authenticity of the moment. It was not a viral sensation born from controversy, but a quiet, compelling moment of professional engagement that demanded attention. The co-hosts eventually resumed their standard commentary, but even then, traces of the intensity remained. References to the film, promotional talking points, and lighter anecdotes were now filtered through the lens of what had just occurred. Every follow-up question carried the weight of the previous dialogue, and the tone of the segment was undeniably elevated. Jordan's demeanor, calm yet authoritative, set the tone for the remainder of his appearance, signaling to viewers that he had not been rattled and that his voice carried measured conviction. By the end of the segment, it was clear that something rare had taken place. This was a live television moment defined not by spectacle or conflict, but by clarity, poise, and authenticity. Both MichaelBJordan and Sunny Hostin had engaged in a professional exchange that challenged assumptions, addressed nuanced questions, and left a lasting impression on all who were watching. It was a demonstration of what live television can achieve at its best. An unscripted human interaction that transcends the ordinary, leaving both participants and viewers with a sense that they had witnessed something important, real, and memorable. In the days following the broadcast, the ripple effects of that exchange became clear. Media outlets dissected the conversation, not for scandal or sensationalism, but for the authenticity and professionalism it displayed. Analysts praised MichaelBJordan for handling probing questions with calm authority, noting how rare it is to see a celebrity navigate such scrutiny without defensiveness. Coverage highlighted the subtlety of the moment, the pauses, the careful word choices, the unwavering composure, and how it demonstrated the emotional intelligence required to engage with public perception while maintaining personal integrity. Social media amplified the impact in real time. Clips from the interview circulated widely, with viewers praising Jordan's poise and Hostin's incisive questioning. Discussions spanned multiple platforms, from Twitter threads analyzing his responses to Instagram posts sharing still frames of his expression at critical moments. Fans and casual viewers alike remarked on how compelling the dynamic was, not because it was confrontational, but because it felt unfiltered and honest. The segment quickly became a reference point for how celebrities could engage meaningfully on live television, illustrating a balance of accountability, self-awareness, and composure. For MichaelBJordan, the long-term effects extended beyond this single interview. His public image, already characterized by professionalism and charisma, gained additional depth. Audiences saw a side of him rarely captured in promotional appearances. Thoughtful, reflective, and willing to engage with difficult topics head-on. This moment reinforced his credibility as both an actor and a public figure, someone who can handle scrutiny with clarity and dignity. It also strengthened his standing among peers and industry observers, who noted that his ability to engage thoughtfully in high-pressure situations reflects a level of maturity and presence often absent in celebrity interviews. Sunny Hostin's reputation, too, was reinforced by the exchange. While she had long been recognized for her direct, informed questioning, the interaction with Jordan illustrated her ability to navigate live television with precision, respect, and impact. Her questioning did not aim to embarrass or provoke. Instead, it created a space for genuine dialogue. In doing so, she demonstrated the value of rigorous, thoughtful journalism within the format of daytime talk shows, reminding viewers and industry insiders alike that incisive questioning can coexist with professionalism and empathy. The cultural significance of the moment cannot be understated. It was a demonstration of what live television can achieve at its best. Real-time conversation that goes beyond scripted narratives and superficial promotion, offering audiences insight into both personal perspective and public perception. Moments like this resonate because they reflect a reality that scripted or heavily edited media rarely captures. Human interaction under pressure, with all its subtlety, tension, and authenticity intact. Over time, the interview became a reference point in discussions about celebrity media dynamics. Industry commentators cited it as an example of how meaningful dialogue can be conducted on live television, emphasizing that careful listening, precise articulation, and mutual respect can elevate an interview from routine to memorable. Jordan's approach, paired with Hostin's skillful questioning, created a blueprint for how celebrities can engage thoughtfully without compromising their authenticity, and how hosts can pursue meaningful inquiry without descending into sensationalism. The enduring lesson from this segment is not rooted in controversy or viral clips, but in professionalism and presence. Viewers saw two individuals operating at the height of their abilities, navigating a live, unscripted environment with grace and intention. The exchange highlighted the power of subtlety, how pauses, gestures, and measured words can communicate far more than volume or theatrics. It also demonstrated the lasting influence of authenticity on public perception, how demonstrating integrity, thoughtfulness, and composure under scrutiny can shape reputation in ways that superficial media appearances cannot. As time has passed, this interview continues to be revisited by fans, media analysts, and aspiring journalists alike. It serves as a teaching moment for public figures, illustrating the value of preparation, self-awareness, and calm engagement. It also serves as a reminder to audiences of the rare but profound moments that live television can offer, moments that allow the humanity of public figures to emerge in a way that resonates beyond the immediate broadcast. For MichaelBJordan, Sunny Hostin, and The View, The segment represents a convergence of professionalism, authenticity, and live performance at its most compelling. It remains a vivid example of how high-stakes, unscripted dialogue can leave a lasting impact, shaping public perception, reinforcing credibility, and setting a standard for how meaningful conversations should unfold on air. Subscribe to The Truth Narrator, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Follow our channel for more in-depth breakdowns of live television moments, celebrity confrontations, and the untold stories behind the headlines. Every moment on camera carries weight, and here we uncover the stories that matter most, one frame, one conversation, and one unscripted exchange at a time.